Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay's Sidequest. This is our weekly YouTube episode that comes live every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This week, Adam has played a bunch of games, and he is going to give us a quick review of each of them and whether or not they are worth your time. Adam, what games have you brought for us this week?
So I have upgraded from 1 to 2 this week. I could have had more, but there's something about time that just, only allows for so much. I know you don't really have a handle of what time is anymore, but
Oh, I know what time is. It's what I don't have.
that's true. True. But yeah, I got 2 here. I have Between Horizons and Open Roads, like I said at the top of our show earlier this week. Between Horizons was the first one I finished. That one is let's say somewhere around 5 to 6 hour game. So as I flip over to our trusty video screen so you guys can see what it kind of looks like, it's this really neat, the visual style was what struck me. It was a bit of like a pixel art sort of game where it takes place on what I can only describe to be like a space mission where I guess a bunch of you are frozen, or maybe it's okay because I didn't quite figure out if it was either like you were frozen, like you're the initial run of people frozen in when they were doing this journey to a new galaxy, or if you're like you've been created as like children with the small amount of people that are living on the station. I think it might be the latter, but I didn't confirm it completely because there was only so much I could do while racking my brain against some of the puzzles in this game. But you're basically on a ship that's destined to reach a far distant galaxy. Clearly something's happened on Earth that's caused this to take place, and you are the chief of security that is dealing with what is a slowly developing essentially opposition group to the way that the system is run, because it's very by the book. We're doing everything for the colony, sort of like a Starfleet level thing, like everything's for the good of the group deal. Mm-hmm. And the game is basically just walk around, talk to everything, get information as much as you can, and eventually try to solve puzzles in terms of the cases that you're given. So like, for example, there's this note that's found saying that, if you want to get into with our group, you gotta meet us here and find this person with that looks like this with this symbol and say this keyword. And the mission will just be figure out who this letter was intended for because it was found before it reaches its intended target. And it's you going through and you'll talk to people and they'll give you some sort of hint, be like, well, so-and-so is mentioning that, this happened. And it'll always be that like thing in orange font. So, it must be important, and it gets added to your case file. And eventually as the game goes, you'll start to collect a good chunk of information, and you'll just sometimes you have to infer. It's not always obvious. When I actually played through the game, there were, I want to say 12 unique things you have to guess. I got almost all of them right, but there were 2 I got wrong. But the game continues on. There's no game over state. It just goes on whether or not you have the right deduction or not. In a similar way, like say how like a lot of Heavy Rain things deal, like no matter what you do in some way, unless it's like your character dies, you continue on.
Yeah.
It's a similar case here where you could fuck up every single time. Game's still going to progress one way or another. So, the game was fine. Like, I would say you can definitely tell that it was made by a much smaller group of developers, that they just had a really cool concept. As a game, it's okay. I think they could have definitely done a lot better things with the HUD. For example, the evidence board that you're looking at on screen just a second ago, they don't erase. So if you have stuff, if there's a specific character you're trying to find information about and you saw them in like the very early part of the game, but it's the late end of the game, you got to scroll down that whole list to get to them. It's a little irritating. So little quality of life things like that could be fixed down the road. But like as a concept, it's a fucking cool concept. I wish we had more detective games. I even said it way back not too long ago when I was playing LA Noire again. I miss detective games. It's fun having games that make your brain work without it being, puzzle, like difficult, like Water Temple, Legend of Zelda, or the Witness level puzzles. It's just, hey, here's all the information you pulled together. Use your gut. Figure it out. There were 2 puzzles in the game that I needed a second to deal with. And also, it's such a niche game that there weren't YouTube tutorials yet. So I had to figure that shit out on my own, and I was angry as fuck. And there were people in a Discord call with me while I was playing this game that watched me just go, I don't know what it wants. And I can't get help. And then eventually I finally just went, oh, that's what they meant. And feel like an idiot for half an hour. But it is what it is. I think it's a really cool game. I think if you find it for a really cheap price on Steam, for example, I don't know how many other devices it's on, but if you find it real cheap, like sub $10, take a stab at it. Like, it's a nice, cool concept if you're into like detective or deduction games. If you're also into like a sort of a Star Trek theme, I think this is really much up your alley too. If you're not looking for something that's shooty based, if you want something that's a little more story based, this does a pretty good job of it. I gave it a 4 out of 6. I think it's just above average. I think it's more the concept that sells a good chunk of it, though. I think this definitely, if it had a little bit more work on it, a few more quality of life additions, and maybe a couple more missions, because I think the end comes a little too quick. If they just expanded a little more on it, I think this could be really, really good. If they ever do a second one of these with getting the feedback that they'll get from people who do play this game, I think this could be a really cool thing down the line, because I think this is a really great concept and just needs some work. That's all it really is. Just, it's something that needs some work. I don't know how big the studio is. Actually, you know what? Let me quickly check who made this and see how many projects they've done before, because that might give me a good sense. Digitales Interactive. And it looks like this, if I'm looking at it here, it might be their second game. Yeah, it's their second game ever. So you know what? For your second release, not bad.
Nice. What would you give this on the scale, on the PixelPlay scale?
First, it might be. Oh no, never mind. That's definitely their second.
On the PixelPlay scale, where are you giving it a ranking?
Like I said, 4 out of 6.
Awesome. And the second one you had for us?
So the second one I got was on Game Pass recently. It's called Open Roads. I'm pretty sure they advertised it at some point during their their showcase streams and such. Straight up, this is probably going to be the emotional game of the year, depending on how things go. I mean, plenty of time, and I play a lot of sappy things now because I like my quick 5-hour, walk around and get a really close to heart story, because not everything can be 80 hours and go fight and kill God by the end. It's nice to have something different.
Yep.
But Open Roads was basically, like I said, it's a walking, touch stuff, and just kind of like experience a story kind of game. It's got a unique thing where the art style is kind of like an early Disney, like Fantasia, Sleeping Beauty sort of art style on top of like a 3D background. The voice acting between the two characters that you get, I mean, there's like a couple of characters that are there for like a moment, but the two characters you see on screen right now, and Tess and Opal being the mom, Tess being her daughter, they are basically 98% of what you'll hear in the game. And they are both fantastic at what they did in that. They did a great job of getting their characters across. It's a very quick game, like 2.5 to 3 hours at most. But what really sells it is the story. And the story is a game that I straight up said to my girlfriend, as soon as I finished the game, I'm like, I can't show you this game because it's going to make you cry way too much, because it's going to hit way too hard. Because that game hits the, mom and daughter, mom and daughter that are having their issues, going through dealing with divorce, running short on cash at some points in their life. Like, a lot of the things that happen in this game are very much similar to how she feels and what I've, experienced listening to. And also the game is set in 2003, so we get added a fuckload with all the referencing in this game. There's a video rental store copy of Clue, the DVD. Swing by the All-American Rejects just comes and plays out of nowhere. Oh. Like, the amount of references. That was another game I played in Discord, and a lot of people had to hear me go, "Game, stop! I know I'm old. I don't need to be told." So, like, it's funny too. Like, they have great differences between moments that are genuinely funny as fuck, and then others that is just like, oh, that hurts. That's I don't know how to say it other than that. It's just like, fuck, that sucks. Like, it's shit like close. That. There's a little bit of a mystery to it too. If anybody remembers, say, oh my god, why am I blanking on the game? Gone Home was similar to that, but there's one other that I'm thinking of. Oh, Firewatch. Similar to that, where like there's a mystery that gets you intrigued, and I won't spoil it, whether, unlike Firewatch, because I'm okay with spoiling Firewatch, it didn't give you what you expected. I won't tell you if Open Roads does, but there is a mystery that is also unfolding during the course of this game too that definitely gets your interest in wanting to know of where it ends, or at least how it ends. Because you always go into stories like this where it's like, oh, what happened this many years ago? What could have been? And you're always thinking, well, we're not going to find the damn thing, but it's a matter of like, okay, but what's the actual end point? And all three of those things combined, like the voice acting performance is fantastic, the story is fantastic, and the mystery does a very good job of keeping you intrigued as the game goes along. This is my second 6 of 6 for the year. It's not touching Helldivers, but I gotta give it its props. It was a fantastic game. Doesn't demand any of your time. It's, like I said, 3 hours at most. And if you're looking for something that's, I won't say chill, but something that's gonna be short and emotional, that is up your alley, and that is a definite must play. I've seen some reviews of it where they act like, oh, it's, it doesn't really resolve it. It's not really much of a resolution sort of game. I'm like, have any of these games ever actually really resolved? They all never do. It's more of just like, it's bittersweet endings, because that's what life is. Life, you very rarely ever get closure to things in life. So just deal with it. But it's a great journey, and I suggest that people, if there was any of the two, I'd say play more than any, it'd be this one. And that's also because it's such a short game, and on Game Pass where it's easily accessible.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you so much for those quick reviews. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like that, we do a full podcast every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check it out. This week we talked about our the most influential games or characters in gaming. You can check that out. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. And with that, thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week. Bye for now.